How did a once introverted programmer go from coding in a cubicle to leading an iconic American brand? Well, that's exactly what Omaha Steaks CEO Nate Rempe did. And along with CEO Forum Group founder Robert Reiss, they're your inside source for magical hacks that will transform the way you command a room, command your career, and maybe even command a company. Get ready. This is Brain of Command.
Hey, this is Robert Reiss here, and I'm with Nate Rempe. Of all of the 11 leadership hacks that Nate's created, this is the one that I've used more than any in my whole career. And this is your network defines you. Why it's so important, I have found my whole career has been built on this third-party endorsements. Generally, if you have people who love what you do and another person knows them, this is one of the most important things.
Yeah, in fact, as I describe it, let's determine whether or not you've used it in terms of how I'm actually framing it. So the name of the hack is Your Network Defines You, and that's actually a play on words with a dual purpose. So it's not only about, your network helping define your success, but it's also about how you intentionally shape your network so that it becomes a kind of a living reflection or definition of your professional identity. So it mirrors who you are. And it helps architect who you can, or in some cases need to become. And that's why this matters as a hack and why it's one of the 11, because it's a shift away from just networking and, to kind of use an IT term, to network architecture. You need to consciously engineer who surrounds you so that your influence and insight expand in every kind of right direction that you need given where you're at in your career or where you might be working at your job.
And thank you. That is a great distinction. And there's really the double entendre in here. It's a lot deeper than most people know. When we talk about our special guest today, she operates as EY's Global Entrepreneurship Leader. She oversees the entire process of that in 90 countries. So, Stasia, talk about what you believe networking is here.
Yeah, I love how Nate framed that because personally and professionally, it's so combined. I will tell you, I had an executive coach, and they actually had me do a networking map exercise.
Oh, great.
That is very connected to what Nate is talking about. So it can be very intentional. What I love about doing that and what you learn from really all of entrepreneurs who are just so highly curious is who you know is what you know. And let me explain. I think this topic is really meaningful because it can move us a lot faster in some respects, but also it can protect us from ourselves, which sometimes we need to do. And so I think personally and professionally, this is what everyone needs, Nate. Right? In terms of just our own ambitious growth. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to apply a network. Everybody needs it.
Totally agree. Let's riff off that map idea. So, thinking of myself, like my network formed by accident for a large portion of my, sort of represented by the stack of business cards that I would just kind of collect over time. A lot of people think that just kind of continuing that is an acceptable way to build that network. But from your experience, Stasia, talk to us about tips that can help listeners do that self-assessment that you might have done with your coach when you're looking at that map, because it's not just to know the landmarks on the map, but it's to know that they're guiding you in the right direction, having the right individuals in your network. Can you take our listeners through that process?
Yes, and I wish I would have brought my network map up so I could take you through the details. But essentially what it does is it has you spend time and energy on yourself and saying, who are the influencers in my life, right? And this could be, let's put it in the business context, right? So you have yourself, your team, strategic stakeholders, maybe some technology influences. I'm just thinking of all the areas that you span in. Plus, we know for chief executive officers and entrepreneurs, there are networks to support you. So I mentioned executive coaches or entrepreneurship networks and communities that you can be part of exactly for this. So
like
the
EO.
mapping, like
EO, for
EO,
example. Yeah.
like YPO, like,
Mhm.
look at the executive education programs at Harvard, Stanford, Oxford. They're all doing it because they know there needs to be a network or sounding board. You can call it many things for thinking, for ideating, for experimenting. So what I love about, and I did it in Excel, but what I loved about it is it allowed you to spend the time to really think about those types of networking relationships and really where you're at with them. And what was surprising to me is I was spending a lot of time with certain stakeholders that weren't really even in the field, right, where the energy needs to be spent. So it allows you to say, okay, if this is my networking map I want to care for, where do I have really solid relationships that are just easy to keep going back to versus the ones I actually need to care for? And that even includes some of the people, Nate, I'm sure you've done this. You have been there for somebody and you're like, wait a minute, I probably need to go back to them to see, well, how can I reciprocate?
Oh my
Right.
gosh, yes.
Right. And so your
Absolutely.
network, when you actually spend time and look at all of these beautiful contributors to your life and business, who do you need to go back and say thank you to? Who do you need to go back and say, hey, you really helped me through this. How can I help you? Because that's how that cycle, this is a vicious cycle. And this is why I say that it becomes who you know is what you know, because it's constant. It's just constantly fueling itself.
You said something there. I was going to actually ask you a question about how you can do what you said, which is reciprocate in your network, because, these are the people that are talking about you when you're not in the room.
Right.
And so like, how do you influence that? And I think it's exactly what you said, which is you have to give as much as you take in any network you have. So identifying the people that are in your network, they belong in your network for these reasons. Not only how can you take value from them, but how can you give value back, such that you're a sort of a steward of the health of your network. And then the net result is, you're getting kind of glowing reviews, right? As people are describing you as a person when you're not there.
Absolutely. I also think, and maybe this is a question for you as we think about this together, everyone has something to contribute, but we can't listen and spend time and energy with everybody. But there are these surprising contributions. So I met with a Croatia entrepreneur just this morning. I have no idea what I'm going to learn from this person.
Right.
And there's so much to learn. And this is what happens when I talked to Robert about the Entrepreneur of the Year program. You just are surprised by, okay, I'm going to meet Nate, but whoa, Nate blew my mind because of his philosophy or this particular remedy that he uses in his business. So you have to almost figure out a way to allow for those surprise network contributions. And usually it's done through safe environments.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, Entrepreneur of the Year and our other entrepreneurial programs, Winning Women, Entrepreneur Access Network, and Ripple's Impact Entrepreneurs are safe environments for that. Like allow for this to happen. And as you mentioned, like EO and YPO, those are other ways to do it. So I think, let me ask you, how do you allow for these surprising contributors that may be worth a spot in your network map?
I will tell you, I think it's most comfortable to invite people you know or have a relationship with in your network. But have you read the research by Mark Granovetter? He was a guy that did some research in 1973 about how infrequent arm's length relationships are more beneficially professional than strong ties. And in fact, LinkedIn did a subsequent study that kind of reinforced that study back from the 70s. And I think it's really interesting that, members of your network that happen to be a far distance from you in terms of sort of the 6 degrees of separation, the farther away they are from you, arguably the more value they have to your network because they have such different experiences.
Yes.
And so I have made a conscious effort not to take the comfortable route in my network architecture, rather to really push myself to meet new people, to do podcasts like this. We would have never met, if I didn't put myself out there like this. And so my network makeup is hardly any of the people that I knew from my past. It's all people that are connected with me in ways that maybe aren't inherently one place removed from my personal relationships, for example. So that's my answer to your question. To actively get that arm's length, infrequent touch relationship into your network.
We are about to take a commercial break. And Nate, you mentioned LinkedIn. When we come back, I'm going to tell you what Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, when I interviewed him, what he told me about networking. So back in a few. We'll get back to the show in just a minute. First, I want to talk about your dinner plans. When you're a busy executive, dinner can be an afterthought. You want to know how I end every day with a win? Omaha Steaks. From fast and easy weekend dinners to getting back out there for spring grilling, Omaha Steaks always has me covered with the quality and convenience I just can't find anywhere else. And every order is backed by a 100% guarantee. No planning, no prep, just handcrafted, one-of-a-kind perfection that's ready when you are and shipped seriously fast to your door. It's why Omaha Steaks has been trusted by professional chefs, families across America, and executives like me for more than a century. Don't wait. Visit omahasteaks.com and discover a smarter way to shop. Plus, get $35 off with the code CEO at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Hi, we are back on Brain of Command, and we are talking about your network defines you. And this is cool because Nate actually has the technology background, so there's a lot of extra meanings hidden in here, but also we're talking about the network you reach out to. Nate had mentioned LinkedIn. So when I spoke with Reid Hoffman, who was the founder of LinkedIn, and I asked him about the whole concept, he always starts everything with so, but he goes, so, Robert, it's really understanding the genuineness of who people are. And the more you know about them, the more you can relate to them and the more you could give. And one thing that I will say, which I want to ask Stasia about, is I've always found when you go into a relationship, the wrong way to do is think of what can I get from them? Always think about what do they genuinely, authentically want? And if you can do something and help them out, it just makes the world a better place. And almost like Nate said, this serendipity emerges and new opportunities emerge just because you're allowing someone else to spread their wings.
I think just having that genuine curiosity and being interested in the person you're meeting with or you've come in interaction with allows those things to happen, right? And you mentioned Reid Hoffman, who I'm very proud to say is an Entrepreneur of the Year alumni. He proved that your network multiplies opportunities and people you know can connect you to so many things. I mean, I'm sure, Nate, you have stories, and you too, Robert, that one connection has completely transformed something, right?
For
Either
sure.
an opportunity or a challenge,
For sure.
just one.
It's funny because, everyone knows that person that when you're talking to them, you feel like they're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can start talking again. Don't be that person to your network. Be someone that listens and contributes, not just waits for the next window to put your 2 cents in. I think kind of quasi what you're saying there, Stasia.
Yeah.
Could I ask you, Nate, you have this unique background that you were a CTO, you were doing technology. So you understand both the network from that point and the network from what you're talking about with this great leadership hack that you created. What are the similarities between technology and human in network?
At its roots, networking is the exchange of information. Similarly, in a human network, that's the point, is you can't be expected to know, all of the experiences, all of the examples that might equip you to make better decisions, to guide your company at a better growth clip, to hire the right talent, to architecture teams in the right way. And so, the human experience is made up by, other people's experiences that compound to make you a better person, to make you a better leader, knowing that you have dealt with a lot of brilliant minds that were in fast moving, starting from building from the ground up, where every day, every week, the complexion of the company is changing. The challenges that each individual leader up against are changing. How, as an entrepreneur, do you become self-aware that your network needs to change, or that the complexion of the network needs? I think of a network as a map and a mirror. Okay, so
Yeah.
if you're able to look in the mirror and say, "Man, I'm a lot different than I was 6 months ago. My needs are different. My map is going in a different direction." How do you become aware of a need to change as an entrepreneur, and how can you actually make that change without alienating your existing network and what has given you up to that point? I think it's a really interesting discussion. We could probably do a podcast specifically on this question. And so I understand it's maybe a long answer, but I think it's a really valuable discussion because I imagine that in your world, it happens often.
What really rises up for me, just in terms of what I've heard from entrepreneurs, is two things. One is everyone agrees with me, this cannot be right. I don't need kindness, I need honesty, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm not getting what I need out of this. And then the second thing is, I do think there are these kind of surprise encounters, and you're like, well, why haven't I thought about leading on this person to influence my network? And then you start saying, oh, well, if this person, maybe it's a technologist, maybe it's, there's a span of things that can really become part of your sounding board of life and experiences and how you do business. So I think it can show up in a variety of ways, but I have sensed some of the topics like regret. And it's like, well, who's surrounding me in these situations when I've gone down this challenge and I feel this way? And sometimes, let's just be honest, I'm writing this article right now about kryptonite because I do think we need to be called out. We're not always self-aware, right? Or we have egos.
What about AI? Can AI be a member of your network? And does it
Absolutely.
change that? Does it change that dynamic going forward? I mean, in theory, it is the sort of the makeup of every human thought and kind of every piece of data that to have ever existed, at least accessible on the internet. So doesn't it, in some sense, replace, notwithstanding the human conversation we discussed, but what role does it play?
Great research. I love putting it into certain roles, like I am Nate from Omaha Steaks. How would you look at it, right? Like it can character play with you. To your point, I think it's absolutely part of the networking exercise, but there are certain things that needs to be handled in a conversation that'll be a little bit different than that. But can it be supportive? Can it give you insight and research and data? 100%.
Maybe not emotional support or a shoulder to cry on or a hug.
Perspective.
Perspective.
Right.
You know who's in my network? I have Coco Chanel, and she is my chief branding officer. And I go to her. However, like you guys say, like Nate, you said, it's face-to-face. It's a step down. Face-to-face is best. Then is networking, like Zoom, like we're doing now. And then AI is the next phase of it. But really, Stasia, you mentioned kryptonite. So I'm going to ask you the concept of superpowers. So many CEOs have said to me, what they do is this is their superpower. It's like the CEO of Voya, Heather, told me that. She looks for people and what is their superpower? How does superpower and what your superpowers tie into defining your network and success as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm like, oh, superpower, because that could be, look, I think you have all these elements that make up who you are, but how you operate within these superpowers, channeling this good energy across yourself, your family, your teams, your customers, it's a constant mix, right? There's no one formula or one rhythm. I'm thinking of your guitar, Nate. Right?
Oh, I appreciate that.
You gotta ebb and flow. Some things are fast, some things are a little bit slower. So I think just kind of meeting people in the middle and knowing where you're at. That's why I think spending that time and energy to map things out for yourself. We don't give ourselves time.
Yep.
That could be a superpower. One of the superpowers I'll say experimenting in is being willing to get it wrong to get it right. testing our beliefs and experimenting is just a very healthy thing to do, to explore how we best get it right.
Yeah, and on that, I want to thank you both. What a great, vibrant conversation about your network defines you. I remember there was this 96-year-old guy, Henry Baker, the top real estate salesman in the world. And I was 22. I'm in his office. I said, "What's the key to business?" He goes, "Never burn a bridge." And through that, well, that's just one of Nate's little pieces, because Nate's, when you get into this, the leadership hack is so much deeper, that your network defines you. And as Stasia's talking about, your network map. But everyone, just think about your network defines you, and see you next time.
And listeners, don't forget to download the companion guide and really get that extensive definition that Robert talked about to help you along as we talk more about the Magic 11.
It's hard to overstate the value of a strong network. Building a broad and deep community network of authentic personal and professional connections sets you up for sustained performance in your current role and opens the door to future opportunities. For more on today's hack, download the free Brain of Command companion guide at omahasteaks.com/podcast. Join us next time when we hack your funny bone, no joke. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell your colleagues that you are hacking your career with Brain of Command.